Hello, everyone, and welcome to Introduction to Individual Giving. I'm so glad you're joining us today. My name is Chris Bunting. I'm the lead instructional designer here at Candid, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. I am also joined by our speaker, Krista Berry Ortega, who will be sharing a range of resources on individual giving throughout today's presentation. And we both have designed this presentation to really share concrete tips and tricks and practical knowledge that you'll be able to share and use for your individual giving programs. Now, if you are here for the first time, this is your first time attending a webinar with Candid, you may be wondering, what is Candid? Well, the answer is that on February 1st, 2019, Foundation Center and GuideStar joined forces to become Candid, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Together, these organizations brought a combined 88 years of expertise and millions of data points to Candid. So why Candid? Well, every year, millions of nonprofits spend trillions of dollars around the world. Candid finds out where the money comes from, where it goes, and why it matters. And how do we do this? Through research, collaboration, and training like the one you're attending today. Candid connects people who want to change the world to the resources they need to do it. And we're so glad and happy to have you here today with us. So we also recognize that we are in a range of kind of historical moments, and as Candid, we have responses to these global events that we're experiencing. So we want to thank you for being part of Candid's learning community. We recognizing that this may be a challenging time for many, and we have shifted our key learning opportunities to a virtual format, and you can check them out at bit.ly/Candid Learning Online. We've also invested in providing the social sector with the resources they need to make informed decisions about today's most pressing issues. So you can learn more about our COVID-19 resources at bit.ly/Candid Resources COVID-19 and learn more about our racial equity resources at bit.ly/Candid Racial Equity. And I know that we are also dropping those links into the chat. I also want to invite you to connect with us. Sign up for our online learning newsletter. We offer a range of trainings all the time, every week, so you can keep up with that via the Candid Learning newsletter, and also connect with us on Facebook and Twitter at Candid_learning. So without further ado, I want to turn my controls over to Krista, who will be leading most of this training. And as I do so, I'd like to introduce her a little bit. So Krista is Programs Manager. Just a moment while she's already beat me to it. So Krista is Programs Manager for the Western region with Candid's Social Sector Outreach Programs team. She delivers in-person and online trainings, well, primarily online trainings these days due to COVID, including free and fee-based workshops and customized trainings in the Western region of the United States, a territory of 13 states. She also contributes to the curriculum design process of our programs, contributes to the team's impact evaluation efforts, and serves as a subject matter expert for the region. She's recognized as an innovative leader and has over 17 years of diverse nonprofit experience from organizations in San Diego and New York. And her specific areas of expertise are nonprofit management, philanthropy, and community development, with I wanted to highlight several professional achievements in scaling organizational impact and directing fundraising operations and business development. She earned her MS in Urban Affairs with a concentration in nonprofit management and public policy from Hunter College in 2006, and a BA in theater with a minor in education from Marymount Manhattan College in 2001. So without further ado, I am so pleased to turn it over to Krista.
Thanks so much, Chris. I'm going to turn my video off in a little bit. I had to just pop in for the human moment. Yes, I'm also based in San Diego, and normally it's sunny San Diego, but I got to tell you, it just started pouring here. So hopefully you can't hear the rain, but I hope you are warm and cozy wherever you are around the country. A little more about me before we dive in. Thank you so much, Chris, for reading my bio. I'm like, whoa, did I do all that? It's kind of wild to be here today. Yes, in regards to our topic today, in individual giving, I really pivoted my career after doing events for so long and realized how important individual giving was. So I've been a fundraiser, I've been an executive director, I've done some consulting with a boutique consulting firm here in San Diego, helping organizations build individual giving programs. And now I'm so honored to be part of the Candid team, where I get a chance to talk about those strategies that worked, and also help you figure out some new strategies in this kind of new normal, if you will, and how we're raising money from folks these days. So thank you all so much for being here. And I'm going to stop my video and get back to the content of today. So if you're here for Introduction to Individual Giving, you're in the right place. This is a new program. This is a new class that we created. So in addition to everyone registering and showing your interest in this topic, we're happy to know that you're interested in these topics. We're also excited for you to participate with us as we launch a brand new program. We have a lot of other programs that complement this topic that I know we'll be sharing more of, and there's going to be tons of opportunity to ask your questions. So go ahead and use that questions box, because we've got our colleagues, we've got more folks than me helping with the questions today. Important to note, this training is brought to you not only by us, but our partner Fundraising Academy that focuses on cause selling education. I'm going to share a little more about that with you today. And we're really grateful for our partnership to be able to provide this curriculum and content and best practice to you. I've got some goals here today to make sure that by the end of this hour, you should be able to, one, explain the importance of individual giving in a nonprofit's fundraising strategy, two, identify key steps for successful individual giving programs, and three, drafting a plan to start or improve your annual individual giving program. And as Chris mentioned, there is some handouts, and I don't recommend you getting ahead of the exercise, but certainly don't forget to download the Excel file that we made possible for you all to continue your planning after today. So we want to know a little bit about you. We want to know, do you currently have an individual giving program, so that we can kind of tailor how I'm going to talk about this topic. Yes, you're updating it. Yes, you're in the process of creating one, or no, you don't have one, or no, you're not sure, which is totally okay. I think that should be launched.
So the poll is launched. We are collecting responses already. Over 50% of the room has voted, and we definitely have a mix, but there is one in the lead. I won't give it away quite yet, and know that no matter where you are, you'll be getting tips and tricks that you can use to get started or to work on your program. But with that, 75% of the room has voted.
Great. Yeah, I mean, no wrong answers here. This is just helpful for us to really understand where you're at. And then to help me start thinking about what questions you might have too. Maybe I can answer them along the way.
Great. All right. Well, with 80% voted, I will close that poll and share the results where we have 37% answering yes. We're in the process of updating it, followed by close 28% and 24%. 24% yes. We're in the process of creating it, and 28% no, 11% not sure. So we've got a little bit over a third of the room in the process of updating, but another quarter who are creating, and so on. So Krista, any initial thoughts on those responses?
No, I think we're gonna, thanks so much, Chris, and thanks for participating, folks. We're going to cover, this is an intro course, so we're going to cover an overview that I think will really apply to all of you. Again, if you have some more specific questions at the end, I'd love to be able to answer it. And then I also want to make sure that you are aware that we have other courses that dive much deeper into all the topics that we're going to explore today that might be relevant to some of you that are really in the process of updating and want to dive a little deeper into your individual giving. So let's jump in. Can you see this slide, Chris, with the pie chart?
I can indeed, that green and gold.
Awesome. Well, thanks to Giving USA, they put out this report, every year. And as you notice at the top of this slide, it says 2019. We're getting ready to get the 2020 report, which I'm kind of on the edge of my literal seat about, because we know what happened last year in 2020. But let's start by giving some context on the data that we do know from 2019. Out of the $449.64 billion for contributions in the US, you can see that big part of the pie chart on the right-hand side is from individuals. It's about 69%. I've been doing this work for, I guess it's almost 18 years now that we survived 2020. And I gotta tell you, this pie chart hasn't changed a lot over the years. We are, again, looking forward to seeing what happened in 2020, but I've talked to a lot of practitioners out there, and I would say from what I've heard, I can't predict the data, I think it's probably gonna look about the same. Anywhere between 69 to 71% over the years, the funding has come from individuals. And so you can really,
Sorry to interrupt you, but we got a great question in the chat that I wanted to pose now. How would you define an individual giving program?
Yes, it is a great question. Basically, there's a lot of levels for individual giving program, and I think we're going to get into it a little bit in today's webinar. But essentially, are you asking individuals for money, right? I would say if individuals randomly send you money, but you're not really asking them or cultivating them or have some sort of strategy or plan to do anything with that, it's just kind of a random gift, then you probably don't have an individual giving program. So a lot of times you might see like a university, if anyone's on from a university, there's a range in how giving programs and strategies look depending on what the need of the organization is and how they're involved. So universities tend to have like really big individual giving program shops and tons of people that work in individual giving, asking alumni to give, things like that. And then I've worked at really small organizations where it was like the executive director, myself, doing the fundraising. So there's quite a range of organizations out there. And you want to really have an individual giving program that really matches what your organization's needs are and something that fits what your organization's values are as well. So they can look very different depending on the organization. I hope that answered the top of the webinar question, but let's really look at the context here for why we're talking about this today and looking at this landscape. A lot of times, especially knowing me, coming from these small organizations, you hear a lot of folks, go get that corporate money, go get those grants, right? And you can see from this pie chart, well, yes, of course, corporate and foundation funding is definitely an important piece of the pie. Individuals are giving so much more. Okay, and this is not some random year in 2019. This is how it's looked for a while. The only thing I'll qualify here is the 10% that comes from bequests. That's folks that have left this life and left money for us behind. That's a planned giving program. We're not going to dive too much into planned giving today, but if you don't have that type of program set up, that's okay. You kind of build to that. I just like to note that the bequests are higher in giving in 2019 and annually than corporation dollars are. Okay, so it's really important for you to start thinking about, no matter where you are in your giving program, that how are your percentages matching up to this pie chart. Go back and look at, is the majority of your dollars in revenue coming into your organization coming from foundations? Well, I would say kind of a quick analysis, great opportunity to spend a little more time developing more individual giving strategies, because there's money out there and people want to give. I would say on the positive side, that's exactly what we heard a lot of last year and are continuing to hear from folks that are fundraising all around the country, is that folks want to help, they want to get involved, and they want to be a part of your organization to help with your mission, especially when it aligns with their values. So I will also note that that data that I just shared is proprietary, but there is some kind of overarching reports out there. So if you want to look deeper into the data, you can Google Giving USA and find some one sheets, or you can go ahead and buy the whole packet of the data from the report and dive in if you're a data person. Important as we kind of set up why are we talking about individual giving right now, is in creating stability for your organization. And I'm sure you've heard at least once, if not multiple times, especially over the last 12 months, we're nearing that year mark of this pandemic, is diversify, diversify, diversify. So I love this image of these kind of different streams coming into this one river, which really shows a nice visual for you to take away with, in addition to this pie chart that we just provided, how important these different streams of funding are to your stability of your organization. So yes, we need government funding and foundations and all those others that we talked about, corporations, in kind, but these individual donors are a really important piece of this overall strategy that we really want to make sure you have the skills and the best practices on how to engage them, so that you can be having this nice multiple streams flowing into your organization's stability. And important to know that we're also talking about kind of long-term success with individuals. So doing the work and planning your individual giving program now for the future is going to be really important. So we're going to try to keep this as interactive as possible. In the question box, help us brainstorm. Why do people, let's talk about individuals right now, give their money, their hard-earned money, to nonprofits? Use that question box and just brainstorm with us a little bit. It could be you might give. Doesn't have to be a lot. We're not talking about millions of dollars here, although why do people give millions of dollars?
Great. I'm already seeing some responses come in. One response I already saw. Oh, I'm seeing lots of responses. Okay. I'm going to just share a few. It makes them feel good. Personal connection to a mission, personal connection to a cause. They connect to a cause that's important to them. They help others because they care. As I mentioned, we have over 500 people actually in the webinar right now, so I won't be able to read them all. But there's a lot about personal connections and my internet is slower than the answers coming in.
That's great.
And helping others and feeling good.
Awesome list. I mean, yes, I would say all of the above and so many more reasons. I mean, sometimes it's tax credits, right? But I love that you all really got to the heart and the kind of alignment to why people give. It's all of the above, and yet it's very individualized. And when we think about individual donors, I feel like if you've met one individual donor, you've met one individual donor. Even in my own household, my husband and I have different interests. He is really into animal rights and helping animals get off the street. And I have a little more of a passion for youth development. And so even in your own household, when you share values, you might have very different reasons why you want to give, who you want to give to, and what really motivates you to give to nonprofits. And so, we'll get into more strategies, but yes, and all of the above. You never know what other folks might be motivated to get involved in based on their experiences and how maybe they were, taught about giving back. Important to note that the number one reason a donor actually decides to give to a nonprofit is they were asked. And usually that's because it was a fundraiser or a board member, someone doing the fundraising. They asked the nonprofit, they asked the donor, the nonprofit asked the donor to give. So while there's many reasons that motivates them, the actual tactical reason they physically got their checkbook out or decided to donate online is because they were asked. There is a study that kind of backs this up, and of course you can dive into a lot of studies. This study was done, I think it was an article actually that was written by Psychology Today, that we might be able to share so you can dive in, or Google it. I always like to Google and find all these new great articles. But it's twofold. It's what's motivating them to want to get involved, and then is someone really engaging them and asking them? And we have a solution here thanks to our partner Fundraising Academy that we call cause selling. There are so many different models out there, but we really like this model to basically, how do you ask, right? How do we get connected to why they're giving and find those donors to give to our nonprofit? On the left here, you see kind of more of a traditional fundraising message that unfortunately leads to kind of unsure funding and incessant scrambling for dollars. You might be able to relate if you're not sure you have an individual giving program or you don't have one right now. All of a sudden it's like, oh my God, pandemic, this is crazy, we need money. And it often looks like, have you heard we need money? We need money, give us money, right? And yes, that is a form of asking. But we're going to share a little bit more with you today on the cause selling message cycle, which is the kind of circle on the right. And this really leads to more of an honest, more from the heart communication that gets to those, deeper reasons why folks are giving to nonprofits, and ultimately ensures that long-term success that all of you need right now. And it looks a little bit more like, here's what we do, here's how you can, here's how that affects you and your desire to give, and obviously the community. Please support our cause through a donation. And here's what your support helped us accomplish, that kind of follow up and sharing the impact that they've had on giving to your organization and helping others. So here's a little deeper dive into this cycle. It is basically 8 steps, and I just find it really helpful. The first thing I'm going to point out, and then we'll dive into them a little deeper, is the ask, as you notice, is all the way over in phase 3, and it's step 7. So you might be going, oh my God, this is exactly why I don't like fundraising. This is exactly why I'm not sure I'm going to stay in this profession, because I just don't want to ask people for money. It's so awkward, so uncomfortable. Oof. And it's like, it's okay, I get it. It is uncomfortable. Your board might be thinking that, and others might be thinking that too. Ultimately, we do need to ask, as we found out. That's why people ultimately make the decision to give to you, because they're reminded, you're keeping your organization top of mind. But there's so many steps that go into building the relationship with these individual donors before the ask. And then the ask, I gotta tell you, some of you that are on the line and you've done this before, the ask doesn't feel as creepy and uncomfortable and cold and weird, because you've developed a relationship. It comes completely natural when you've done all of these other steps leading up to it. So this also really helps. As a new fundraiser, I remember, sitting in my chair every day and going, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now? Like, I know I need to ask them for money, but it also really helps you put a plan together, which we're going to get to at the end of this webinar, on like really important action steps that you can take today to ultimately get to that point where you're bringing in dollars from individuals. So let's go through these key steps on a high level. Number 1 is prospecting. It's finding the donor, right? It's finding the donor's name. Secret, a lot of times your best donors are people that you already know, okay? So it might not be that you don't know their name. It might be digging through your CRM or your donor database, whatever that might be, to identify who that donor is going to be that you're going to start cultivating. Maybe it's a constituent in your organization that graduated from your organization, a longtime volunteer, or someone that continues to show up, but hasn't really made the decision to give a cash donation in that way. Number 2 is gather that information you need. Sometimes you can bring in this number 2 pre-approach stage for a while. Gathering that information, Google is a really great resource, so is LinkedIn. But sometimes gathering that information is more of a collaborative project, where you're getting the board involved, where you're getting other donors involved, where you're reaching out to community stakeholders or even other nonprofits to learn about this prospect. So don't forget that those relationships and kind of the networking that you want to do in between these steps are going to be really important. You don't have to just kind of gather the information all on your own in your kind of virtual office, if you will. Step 3, we're moving into phase 2 here, is the approach. It's introducing you, your organization, and others, leaders in your organization, to the donor. And that can happen in a lot of different ways, but important that they kind of, know who you are, right? Or if they already know who you are, you're reintroducing you as a new person, or your new initiatives. Step 4 is the needs discovery. And this is really, again, you can be in this stage for a while too, a really important step, because you're going back to that why, right? It's a perfect question in this stage. Why do you give to our nonprofit? Or why have you given to another animal shelter over the last year? Because you might have found that out somewhere. Or you can see that folks are specifically interested in, even in their social media or LinkedIn, in certain areas. So really understanding their passions, how they want to get involved, and back to the big why. Right? Why do they want to give, or why would they like to get invited to be more engaged? Step 5 is telling the story of the mission. It's more of the presentation. And this really, it takes time. I would say it takes a committee usually. You might even have a campaign going on where a presentation, you often, again, are not doing that alone. A lot of folks are involved in what the presentation is going to look like, having a really strong case for support. Sometimes, I like to say this because I didn't learn this until years later, sometimes the presentation is a beautiful PowerPoint, just like this, that you can present to them just like we are, maybe a little more interactive like a Zoom call, and kind of a leave behind that they can then review and learn more about what the ask is, and really, what the organization is doing. And then 6 is an important one. It's overcoming potential roadblocks to giving. These are the objections, and we've got some really great strategies in some of our upcoming programs on kind of how to handle these objections. My first tip is try to know what those objections are up front in the needs discovery phase, so that you can kind of build them into your relationship. But this is an important phase. If they do have, they're interested in giving, but it's not a good time because someone is sick in the family, these are really important things for you to know, so that you can, back into our plan, create a really smart timeline for ultimately, ta-da, the next step, which is what everyone thinks of when they think of individual giving, the ask. Okay, it comes. Don't worry, it's a really important part. If you've had this relationship with this donor all the way up to this point and you don't ask, they're going to be like, what's going on here? Are they doing their job? So that comes, but sometimes it's the CEO that asks, sometimes it's a board member that asks. It's not always necessarily the lead fundraiser. I like to think of like the fundraising team as really the liaisons to really understanding who's going to make the ask and strategizing. And hey, sometimes it is going to be you making the ask, depending on what your role is. So you want to be prepared for that. I would say probably the second to most important step is the final one, which often is left out of a lot of steps, and organizations are, I think, always kind of struggling to invest in this time, because it's like, we got the money, thank God, we can survive, we all have jobs. But it's like, no, really following up with those results, okay? Because that's where you get the loyalty, okay? That stewardship, and building in stewardship activities and opportunities and kind of tailored stewardship approaches, thanking people and thanking them creatively at all levels, really helps you to foster that loyalty. And it goes back to that stability that we're looking for in our organizations, frankly, now more than ever, of having all of those streams regularly flowing into your organization. And this loyalty is a critical piece that we can count on for individuals. And that's why individual giving is so high. We can't really count on government funding right now, can we? I can tell you, we work with some government partners, and it's tough times for them. They've been battling a pandemic and getting folks, resources. The government, dollars probably aren't there as much moving forward. So let's not be sad about it. Let's, pivot and really find some other resources that are a little more stable these days. I want to come back to this because I think you all hit it on the head in the beginning in terms of why people give. And if there's one thing that you take away from this 8 steps, the heart of those 8 steps is this need discovery, and that's why we put a heart there. It really doesn't work without that heart and that really understanding the why they want to give, why they, the donor, want to get involved. And you can see now why individual giving is so kind of tailored and relationship building heavy, because you really want to understand the difference. Now, they all might be giving to your organization that has some shared wise, but they might have a different reason. It might be a family history, it might be an experience that they had that motivated them to get involved. So really understanding why, and that's where you also start to understand and qualify, you know, what capacity they have to give as well. So remember, the ask isn't always about asking for money, although that's an important step. It's about asking your way to the gift, asking them questions, and starting with, why do you want to get involved? You know, so ask your way to the gift, and also really listen your way to the gift as well. It's really important to be a good listener as a fundraiser. Here's the pyramid. This is a way to think about what an individual giving program might look like. I will say the visual of the pyramid isn't exactly what every organization looks like to the T. It might be different shapes going upwards, if you will. But the idea of this kind of conceptually is that occasional donors at the bottom and event participants, those are going to be typically more donors. A higher number of actual donors are going to be those occasional and event participants. And as you move up the pyramid, up to reoccurring and annual donors, all the way up to major donors, and at the tippity top, you might even have those planned giving bequest prospects. The dollar amount from the donor goes up. So while the actual number of donors tends to decrease as you go up, the dollar amount becomes much higher, right? So you might have one major donor, for example, that gives you $10,000 a year. That was a very common, regular major gift at my organization years ago that I was working with major donors, and I created a major donor program there. Your organization, I hope maybe your major gift threshold starts at 100K. That would be cool. But some of you that are smaller organizations, it might actually look like 1,000 or 5,000 is where your major donor threshold starts. So you can see that like that one gift from that one major donor might possibly be, you know, totaling more than all of the occasional donors or event participants gifts annually. But it's important that you know about all of them. And I think sometimes I see a little too much focus on time with major donors. Obviously, it's a big gift. They need the time, they need the stewarding. But this is a time when looking at these event participants, even from a gala that you might have done or some sort of event that you might have done in 2019, is such an important strategy to either refreshing or rebuilding that individual giving program this year, because they did something, they gave something, and they were interested for some reason. And really understanding and developing strategies for each level creates a pipeline now that you can continue to sustain back to that stability and bring in more folks through occasional campaigns and event participants to kind of continue to build them up to ultimately more major donors in the future. I've been talking about planning, which is really important, and it's also one of the learning objectives as it happens to go. So let's talk a little bit about fundraising planning. What is it, first of all, so we can all be on the same page here? Typically, it's a living document, this plan, and it lays out these specific fundraising strategies that your organization has. Most importantly, this plan has the detail on who's responsible for completing these critical tasks and a time frame when they need to be accomplished, because it's easy to say, go raise millions of dollars, Krista. Heard that one before. And I'm like, okay, but like what, how? Also, what happens when you have a fundraising plan and everyone's on board, the board and the executive director and other folks, even the programs team knows what the goals are, then you can actually set really realistic fundraising goals. Oftentimes, especially for smaller organizations, I worked for a theater company for a while here in San Diego, and it was the artistic side that would go and like sketch out their budget for the year. We're going to do this show and we're going to do this show. This is obviously pre-pandemic, but I got to tell you, they've been doing some amazing online presentations and shows lately. So they'd sketch it out, they need all these resources, and then they'd hand their kind of budget over to the development department and be like, here, this is what we need you to raise this year. Well, that's lovely, but that might not be realistic. Okay, so what happens with planning is everyone gets together, and based on the folks that have given in the past and the other quote unquote assets that you have in your organization, you can set a more realistic fundraising goal that then everyone feels, more dedicated to help accomplish that goal together as a team and creating that sense of culture of philanthropy, but also B, you feel more confident. And that's what I want all of you to leave with as fundraisers, or hopefully there's some volunteers and board members on here too. We want folks to feel confident that they can meet these goals. That's what keeps people around, and that's what keeps donors around. So here's a sample plan strategy that we want to share with you. Here's a goal. You already know that you have this capacity because you have a bunch of new and occasional donors. Maybe you did an event in the past, and you want to raise $10,000 from them by the end of this fiscal year, which is June 30th. I would say get going. So realizing that you might have this mid-year goal or that your fiscal year is over, you know that your strategy is going to be you're going to launch a virtual fundraising campaign. Really important. I can tell you, I was doing virtual fundraising campaigns before this pandemic. And I would say now even more than ever, they're really important to have a comprehensive campaign on how you're going to be thinking through what the virtual activities are going to look like. So some of your action steps are going to be the development staff will research those potential prospects, looking into those occasional donors, right? Doing that, data mining of the lists, and they're going to design that virtual campaign ASAP, right before April. Another important action step will be that the board and staff will review that prospect list to see if there are any connections, and they can help make some more, kind of warmer asks, if you will. And then we'll get to the GuideStar profile as an important step in your potential plan here, but it's also important on this timeline that they reviewed and updated the GuideStar profile, because as soon as you especially launch a campaign, eyes are going to be all over your profile and people are going to be Googling you, and they're probably doing it now without even a campaign being launched. So important that you have your kind of virtual presence updated. And then finally, the development staff will launch the virtual campaign to engage and solicit prospects. And that way you have a real clear timeline. Everyone knows what the details are, and everyone can move forward. I think this is my opportunity. I have a little thunder. Sorry, everyone. I hope my internet stays with me. We're going to give you a handout, and I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to come over here and share this. Chris, can you see the Excel file?
I can see the Excel file, and we can also be dropping a link to the file in just a moment in the chat. But yeah, awesome. I would welcome you giving a tour of this awesome Excel file.
Thank you. We're excited to offer this new handout to you. Chris and I kind of put our brains together and thought, okay, what's the best way to start thinking about how do you now, depending on where you are. It looks like we've got a little bit of everyone on, depending on where you are in your individual giving program. Really understanding the current strength and status of your program to understand where to put your attention to. Listen, if you already have a comprehensive fundraising development plan, awesome. These are also kind of more detailed strategies that you're welcome to take with you and or add to your plan. But you do this with us if you know today. If your constituency, your list might look a little different than ours over here, but these are the types of donors. You've got your new and occasional donors. You've got event participants, either that have come to some of your virtual events or past events. You've got your reoccurring and annual donors. It's okay if you don't have a reoccurring or annual program. Major donors, you might add your plan giving folks here. You might have your own categories for different types of individual constituencies. But this is a kind of a good overall draft. And then you want to just know. If you don't know today, guess, and then put it on your notes as homework to go find out, how are you doing? Are you on target with your program and meeting your new and occasional donor goals for fundraising? Is it more cautionary and you're like, we should just kind of like make sure that we have some meetings coming up and revisit our plan this year, or maybe we need to write a plan? Or is it like, emergency, this needs attention? Wow, never thought about those folks ever. It's okay, you're not alone. I was on a call earlier this morning that, we were reminding folks that this is an important stakeholder or constituency. So doing a quick assessment to know where you are with your different types of individual donors is going to be really important to then, and the second tab here, build out more detailed action steps. My slide was very kind of, general, but we wanted to build out even more detailed ideas for you on what that might look like. And this is, again, just for, oh, yep, go
Sorry,
Chris.
so before we get too far into it, if you could go back to the Assess Current Strengths tab that we invite people to kind of take a look at. We got a great question in chat, and I'm sure that person asking is not alone. What should people do if they feel like everything is in that needs attention column? Where should they start?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think, to me, it would depend on if you have all of those constituencies. If you only have one or two, then that might narrow down your needs attention list. I think it would be hard for me to know if you have major donors and the reality is that it needs attention. Frankly, I would probably start there, because that would be some of my questions around, when was the last time you got a major gift, and when was the last time those major donors were contacted, because that will help me understand then how to prioritize the other folks based on how you're talking to your major donors, which is, frankly, it's less people and more money. So urgently, stability-wise, larger gifts are going to help an organization. Doesn't mean it's going to be faster, though, because major donors tend to, take a little longer. So it's hard to give a kind of blank answer without knowing more detail. But if you have all of these categories, I would recommend going back and really doing more data mining on understanding where you are with your major donors first, and kind of work your way back from that plan.
Great, thank you.
Yes. Was that the only question, Chris?
Oh, we have a number of other questions, but I just felt like that one probably was worth speaking to immediately rather than waiting until the end.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We're giving you some general tools, but I would definitely, the reason we gave this handout to you as an Excel spreadsheet is because we'd love for you to download it and kind of make it work for your organization. Important homework is try to fill it out based on your knowledge, and anything that you don't know is a perfect action step for you to take when you get back to working with your colleagues this afternoon and or tomorrow, is really understanding well, we don't do events, Krista. Okay, well, delete that one, right? Or we want to do events, but that's not top priority. Fine, get that one out of there. Maybe we've never had occasional donors because we don't have a button set up on our website. Okay, so then really customizing the type of donors that you have in your organization. If you're building the program for the first time, you might just have one line, new donors, right? Or you might even have a special line as you're creating a new program that might be volunteers. A great way to start an individual giving program is with volunteers and or staff. Okay, you want to build a staff giving campaign that is obviously inclusive and doesn't have pressure, and all these important points. But I would say when I see organizations that don't necessarily have staff giving campaigns, it kind of signals to me a little bit about where the culture of philanthropy is, if the folks that are working there and or volunteering there aren't the first people to be asking, because they're the closest ones to the mission, right? They've already committed to being a part of the mission. So again, people aren't going to give unless you ask and make those opportunities available to them. So sorry, see, this is what happens, Chris. I go on tangents and I've got all these stories that I want to tell, but right now I'm going to walk you through this. Again, this is just a sample. We hope that you take this, use it as a sample, add it to your development plan, or if you're only in charge of one part of your existing fundraising plan, build out a very detailed mini plan for what you're responsible for. Maybe you're just responsible for the virtual campaigns or the peer-to-peer fundraisers. Great. build out a more detailed plan where you kind of walk across, you take each constituency. This is the example for new and occasional donors. You need a financial goal because we're talking about raising money here. If you're building an individual more stewardship plan, you could use this sample, and it's not about raising money specifically, but it's about cultivating X amount of new supporters and inviting X amount of people to my next virtual presentation. Then you want to have some sort of SMART goal in here that you have a number. We want to bring in 10 new major donors this year. So everyone really knows where you're tracking to. And then the strategy is overarching, just kind of like what we showed in the slide here. You've got your overall time frame, you've got the person's responsible, you've got your kind of more detailed measure of success, and then we wanted to give you an opportunity to write even more detailed steps. So even for this example, earn the GuideStar Seals of Transparency, there's a couple steps that you need to take to actually get that, right? So you want to review and claim your GuideStar profile, you want to update the profile, you want to share an image with or a video on your profile, and you want to promote it. So as more detailed you can get, the more you can actually see what that timeline is going to look like, and then you can actually be like, yep, I'm on target, we can do that by June. Or, you know what, this isn't realistic. I need to have a conversation with someone in the organization to say, these are all the critical and important steps and the people responsible for making them happen. Is there any way we can kind of push that goal to December so that we really have enough time to build out these strategies and action steps with all the important folks that are, we're engaging? Chris, I'm going to move on because I was looking at the time and I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for questions.
Great.
Cool. Okay. So hang on to that handout. But first, a quick pop quiz. And hopefully I didn't give it away if people were paying attention with my slides there. How many active nonprofits are there in the US today? Take a guess in the questions box. Throw it out there. I'm going to move on. Hopefully you were close.
I got 1.8 million from Glenn Ellen Lemper.
Thanks, Ellen. You're right. It's just under that. I just ran this a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, it's just under 1.8 million. The important part of this point here, folks, is that there's a lot of nonprofits all around the country, just like you, doing really important work. And when we think about all those individual donors, there is a little bit of quote unquote competition for funding, right? How do you stand out as an organization with all these other amazing organizations? Chris, can we do a poll real quick? Great. Okay, so are you familiar with your nonprofit's GuideStar profile is the question. The answers are yes, no, or what's a GuideStar profile? That's almost a tongue twister. This is completely anonymous. We're not trying to hang you up. We just want to know how familiar you are.
All right, so it looks like 60% of the room has voted. I'll give you another 10 seconds to keep things moving to vote. And we have definitely in the lead an answer of yes. So I'll close that poll, and of the 65% who voted, we have about 70% who say yes, they are familiar with their GuideStar profile. Those of you who answered no, or what's a GuideStar profile, don't worry, we will be sharing resources on how you can get to know it. But without further ado, Krista, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, folks. I consistently learn more about how valuable your GuideStar profile is, especially for individual donors. Kind of think about it as like a one-stop shopping spot, an online shopping for nonprofits spot for individuals. I'm getting involved as a volunteer in an organization locally, and I Googled the organization's name the other day because I wanted to go to their website, and the third hit on the SEO search was their GuideStar profile. Their SEO is horrible, love them, that's why I'm going to get involved and help them, but their website isn't popping up, their GuideStar profile is, okay? So really important to make sure no matter what is happening with your organization that you're aware of your GuideStar profile and seeing it as a tool that folks are looking at before you even get to know them, before even that prospecting step. A couple of kind of bullets here about what it is for those that might have answered no or not sure. It really goes beyond the IRS data, which is important for donors to look into. And it has insights on these millions of nonprofits that we just talked about. And the most important piece is that you, the nonprofit, are putting the information on this page so that you can tell your story in the best way that's right for your organization. We just launched the 2021 Seals of Transparency. Basically, the more you share, which is awesome because you get to share information about your organization in a beautiful way. You don't even have to build a website. The more you share, the higher your seal of transparency available for you to gain. And I am so excited about this new study. I've been like sharing this link with everyone. So if we're able to drop this link in the chat, you can dive in a little deeper, but this recent study showed that it turns out that transparency, especially with individual donors, folks, it pays off. That's what they're investing in. If you want to get to that major donor bequest area, they want to know that they can trust you. They want to know that you're going to be around longer than this, vaccination process. They want to know that you're going to be here for 5+ years doing this important work before they invest. So we've found that over 53% of year-over-year contributions to organizations increases thanks to their GuideStar profiles. So it's really important when you get that seal that you understand that more money and more trust is coming to your organization. There's 3 easy and simple ways to claim. An update, you go in, you request it, you get approved, and you just go and you tell your story and you get everyone involved and everyone's really proud. And like Chris said, we'll share more information. We've got other trainings coming up on kind of how walking you through this. Oh, we did it, yay! Okay, we want you to continue learning with us. We have this amazing new program coming up, a virtual cohort program called the Fundraising Academy. We're going to dive in deep into every single one of those steps, plus some other amazing topics for individual donors like ethics, right? And how to kind of do ethics virtually these days. You're gonna practice making asks. You're gonna feel so confident after this program and really doing the work, not just building the program. So please look into the Fundraising Academy and join our first cohort. We also have this great on-demand e-learning program that you can take on your own, get others in your organization involved on how to start a major gifts program. I think I covered all the learning objectives. Chris, I want to answer people's questions.
Great. Well, we have quite a few, so we won't get to them all, but we certainly have a number that have come up. And one question that came in repeatedly was, what exactly do we mean by a virtual fundraising campaign? So, Krista, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, a campaign is a little more of like an integrated process or strategy where you're using multiple methods to get the word out and kind of raise your goal, right? So just putting the donate button on your website is kind of a tactic. That's not necessarily a campaign. That's part of the campaign. Having your GuideStar profile updated is part of the campaign. Launching a peer-to-peer fundraising program and developing a toolkit might be part of a campaign. Doing an integrated email, I was going to say campaign, integrated email strategy where you have a $10,000 goal and you're asking for folks to help you meet that goal. And that's why it's almost marketing in a way. You want to get your marketing team super involved. All of those communications are telling a same story. There's a deadline, and everything that you're getting from the organization is kind of going towards this one time frame in campaign. So it's really important that you think about campaigns for individual donors, especially those kind of lower level, newer donors. You want to get them involved and to be a part of something and kind of get them involved in the urgency, I would say, of giving now.
Great. Yes. Thank you for those concrete examples. Another question that made me think back to your pyramid that you had earlier of kind of the base of the kind of occasional donors going up to major donors. We had a question come in, what percentage of individual giving comes from high net worth individuals as opposed to donors giving smaller dollar amounts?
It's a great question. I don't have that number. at the top
Okay.
of my head.
Yeah.
We can get that. It's interesting that you say that, because I've been invited to speak on a panel with a researcher that has been looking at those kind of high net worth individuals, and early findings for his study show that less people are giving more money at that high net, donation level. Okay, some might take that data and go, oh crap, that's bad. you know I'm not sure that that's what actual fundraisers are necessarily seeing, but it's something to be aware of, which is why I really wanted to push the importance of developing engagement strategies for all levels of donors. Because if you're only worried about those kind of high net worth folks, I mean, it could be years before you get to some of those real philanthropic folks. You've got folks that are giving to your organization that will definitely be interested and have the capacity to upgrade their gift. And those are the ones that I would recommend you focus on first. And then a longer term plan to kind of get to those, mega high worth individuals might happen over a few years. But let's look into that data, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
And see if we can get that number.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for walking us through kind of what that range might look like. We have another great question that came in, and I know that we have a video of a past webinar on kind of diversifying your major giving base and your board. But I also was curious, Krista, if you had any thoughts on the question of what's your approach to best engage donors who are traditionally not engaged or not asked, like Native American, African American, or Latinx donors?
I don't.
And I know, oh, go ahead. I know we have a video on this from a past speaker, so I'll also pop that in chat.
Yeah,
but,
it's a great question. I'm sad that that's the statement that, we can say they're not typically asked. I get it though, it's true. I think it depends. I think it depends on your organization, on your organization's mission. What's your board composition looking like? And it's not necessarily about singling folks out. It's about really looking back at your organization and thinking about what works best for your organization and who's been involved in your organization. So if you go back and you go, wow, our organization serves a very specific population, and yet look at the composition of our board and our regular individual donors. Maybe we should put a little more effort into engaging more stakeholders that actually are more representative of the work that we do. I think sometimes it feels with any individual donors like I'm doing this and those people that give money are like way over there, far away from me. And that's because we're thinking about people that aren't necessarily connected to our organization. So again, start by really understanding your organization, understanding who's been involved in your organization. One strategy that I created was I went back and looked at, there was a group of donors that used to give every year and then they kind of stopped giving. And that was important to me that I went back and kind of asked them, why did you stop giving? What made you kind of, teeter out? And they wanted to be more involved with the founder. And so we brought the founder back in and had more engaging opportunities with the founders. And we really saw true diversification of who we were talking to because we brought the founder back involved. So it's a hard question. I wish we would do more by not putting that kind of bias on ourselves as askers. But I think it really starts at the organization level and really understanding, well, what is our organization good at and who do we want to engage in our organization that fits our mission right? Have it be mission driven and mission focused.
Thank you so much, Krista. And I know we're asking you rapid fire a range of questions at the end of an hour webinar with a lot of great information in it. No, so I do want to point out in the chat, I did drop a link to our hour-and-a-half recording of a webinar on steps you can take immediately to diversify your board and major donor base. So if you want to dig into that, really know we have that additional resource to take a look at. And I can't believe it, but we have come to the end of our hour together. I know that there's probably a conversation we could have for at least another hour just on questions, but in respect to everyone's time, I do want to close out today's webinar and thank you all for joining us. So just a few kind of pieces of housekeeping as we close out. First of all, I want you to rest assured that you will be receiving a recording of the webinar tomorrow. So if you want to review any of the content that we covered together, know that you will be receiving a link to the handouts and the recording of the webinar tomorrow. Also, you'll see a survey that comes up right as you close out of this webinar, you exit the webinar. We really, really, really appreciate your feedback on that survey. As Krista mentioned at the top, this is a new program. So your feedback is going to help us think about how we can polish it, improve it, make it even better next time we offer it. And we want to invite you to stay connected and never miss a virtual training by subscribing to our Candid Learning newsletter. You can subscribe at bit.ly/Candid Learning newsletter. And we also invite you to find us on Facebook and Twitter at Candid_Learning. On behalf of our team here at Candid, thank you so many of you, hundreds of you for joining us today. If you like this webinar, we hope that you join us again soon and have a fabulous rest of your day.